Can you actually get shredded just doing calisthenics? Social media would have you believe so. A lot of people think bodyweight workouts cause this look, but it's not necessarily the exercises, it's the incentives of the sport and the bottlenecking of high-level skills. While I take you through my unflashy day of eating and training, let's unpack the nuance to the actual answer of whether calisthenics makes you shredded. Getting lean comes down to mainly your diet. The style, volume, intensity, and frequency of your training, as well as your basal metabolic rate, are also contributing factors, but it also does ultimately boil down to energy in versus energy out, not whether you lift weights versus do handstands or muscle ups. However, being lean in calisthenics gives you an advantage, so the best calisthenics athletes end up being shredded because calisthenics rewards people who are strong without carrying extra mass. So the higher your strength to weight ratio, the better you'll perform. That's why so many high-level athletes look shredded. It's performance driven. This is what I mean about the bottlenecking of high-level skills. The planche doesn't make you shredded. It's just a much higher likelihood that you'll be able to planche if your body weight or body fat percentage is low and your relative strength is high. It's quite interesting in a way if you're in between, not being too big or too small, considering whether to decrease body weight or increase strength. I discussed this in my last vlog and the idea of getting very strong as an approach to planche. But that of course involves adding extra mass. I've also gone the other way and considered lowering body weight. I've even considered weight cutting before a planche attempt. But I think in the end that'd be stupid, as being dehydrated before attempting high demand strength skills would just be risky for the muscles and tendons. So handstand push-ups, pull-ups, front levers, they're not better or worse for getting shredded than bench press, lat pull-downs, and bent over rows on the surface. There's no mystery shredding mechanisms to these movements. All these ripped Cali athletes that you see are enjoying that leanness as a side effect. The performance side of calisthenics favors that body type. So let's talk about another angle. What if you're doing calisthenics and you're noticing that you're not getting ripped and that you're not building muscle? This is less spoken about, very likely, because no one wants to fucking admit it. So let's just say you're too heavy and deconditioned to even do a push-up. Bodyweight training is going to need to be regressed to levels in a lot of bodyweight training angles that are achievable. And a lot of people that are beginning might not have the knowledge on how to regress certain bodyweight movements. It's much easier to have a dumbbell that says 10 kilos. And if that's too heavy, you go to 5 kilos. Whereas if you can't do a push-up on the floor, it might not always be obvious to someone to increase the incline of their body. If your body weight is very high or your strength to weight ratio is very low, then you're not going to be able to push the intensity of the movements either just in general enough because you're too heavy, or if you don't have the knowledge or education in this way of training how to regress a movement, you're not going to be able to train at a level that's going to be inducive of adaptation, therefore muscle growth, and you're not going to be able to burn enough energy because you're not pushing your workouts hard enough because you don't know how to actually build the muscle. So it can go both ways. I guess it just takes a realistic perspective to step back and see where do you slot in to this categorization of training. It can also be worth just defining what you think of as shredded, because I think the main muscle people think about when they think of shredded is a six-pack. And I'm pretty sure most people listening to this know that that's not how they would define shredded, because you could see a marathon runner that has visible abs and they do not count as shredded. I think shredded does imply a degree of muscle mass on the body, and that is all over. So developed shoulders, back, arms, abs. So your calisthenics training does need to involve building muscle to a degree, and most calisthenics will. It's just if you're doing purely things that are, say, a front support, so top of a push-up position, and tapping your shoulder for 1 minute and then going into plank for 30 seconds, that kind of calisthenic style workout is not going to be conducive to looking shredded. A lot of the discussion today has spoken about the training modality coupled with diet resulting in a look of shreddedness, but we also cannot bypass the involvement of genetics. It's almost such a given that you don't really need to talk about it, but just in case someone is needing that reminder listening to this video, is genetics also does play a role. And I suppose that is where just your predisposition to building muscle, your basal metabolic rate, even though you can influence these things, some people are just favorably more on the leaner side, and some people are unfavorably more on the pudgier side. Ultimately, how easy or difficult it is to get shredded can be impacted by your genetics, but it is not determinant of whether you can or cannot get shredded. Let that be a reminder for you. In my opinion, the best calisthenics training to get shredded is strength skills. So even though things like 100 push-ups, 100 dips, and 100 pull-ups, oh my goodness, is impressive to a degree and certainly a challenge on the body, movements like weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, planches, front levers, high-level strength skills, and basic push and pull with difficulty enough that you're working within that lower rep range of 3 to 8 repetitions within that. Those are the movements that are going to build muscle, and coupled with a low body fat percentage, that is the ultimate shredded look. If you build too much muscle though, you turn into jacked instead of shredded. Maybe we should do a video on defining what each of those terms means. Does calisthenics make you shredded? If someone asked that, if you don't have much time, if you've got to go and train, the answer is yes. You definitely do get shredded training calisthenics, but the nuance to that is obviously the way you train the calisthenics and the way you progress with it is going to determine how or how little shredded you get, and coupled with your diet and your consistency, the factors that we mentioned before will determine how shredded that you get. So it's a great tool, but calisthenics is ultimately not going to be a shortcut if you're looking for a fast track. Those principles of progressive overload and good diet and everything are still going to play that key role, and that can be from calisthenics to bodybuilding to Olympic weightlifting to sprinting. Programs are in the description, guys, and I'll see you for the next one.